overwhelming clarity that reveals deep truths about the life he left behind. In this state he begins to understand something he had never realized with such intensity before: absolutely everything had a purpose. As his consciousness floats into this new plane of existence, a powerful revelation unfolds before him. Every moment of his life, from the most insignificant to the most momentous, was part of an intricate project. Nothing was random, everything has its time, and everything desired under heaven has its time. Now he understands that every joy, every suffering, every decision made, was part of a greater plan, which he himself chose before he was born. Your loved one discovers that their existence was not just a passage of days, but a journey towards spiritual evolution. All the challenges he faced, the tests he overcame, were not punishments or simple bad luck, but lessons, opportunities for growth, to polish the soul like a diamond under pressure. He who began a good work in you will continue it until the day of Jesus Christ. He now knows that this work was his own spiritual development, and every step in his life was a step towards the perfection of his spirit. The tension of this revelation is intense. It is a moment of pure introspection, where the entire weight of his decisions and experiences falls on him. Was your life fruitful? Did you fulfill the purpose for which you came into the world? And then, with overwhelming clarity, you realize that yes, your life has been a success. Not in terms that the world can consider, but in terms of the soul. His spirit grew, he evolved, he learned the lessons he came to learn. With this understanding comes deep reflection. He realizes that, in life, we often get carried away by the superficial. We forget that we are here for something bigger than simply existing. Do not be conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. In that moment, your loved one realizes that true transformation is not achieved by accumulating wealth or seeking recognition, but by cultivating the spirit, loving, forgiving, and learning to find peace. With each revelation that surrounds him, there are no doubts or regrets, only the deep understanding that everything he experienced had a purpose. Every tear, every smile, every act of love and each mistake were essential pieces of a puzzle that he now sees in its entirety. And we know that all things work together for good to those who love God. In death, this truth shines more clearly than ever. Everything that seemed inexplicable was for the good, for your spiritual growth. And so, with this new understanding, your loved one feels ready to continue their journey. You accomplished your mission on earth, you learned what you needed to learn, and now you are prepared for what comes next. He knows that his path does not end here, that the evolution of the soul continues in the afterlife, but he does so with the peace of mind of knowing that he did the best he could and lived a full and meaningful life. In this final moment of revelation, he says goodbye with love, leaving a legacy of wisdom and growth. His earthly path has come to an end, but his spirit continues, full of peace, wisdom, and the certainty that everything was as it should be. Number 8. See the beyond. As you move towards the light, you begin to see other people, those who have gone before you, loved ones waiting for you with open arms. Blessed are those who are called to the marriage supper of the Lamb. Here, in this place beyond what mortal eyes can see, souls gather in a joyful reunion. There is no longer pain or suffering, only the purity of love that transcends death. But what you see is not just a reunion. The environment that surrounds you continues to transform into a landscape of indescribable beauty. It's like nothing you've ever seen on earth, but at the same time, everything feels familiar, as if the paradise you once imagined has become a reality before your eyes. He who overcomes will inherit all things, and I will be his God, and he will be my son. This is the promised place, an eternal home where all promises are fulfilled. In this new heaven and new earth, everything is majestic, without the stain or corruption of the old world. The colors are brighter, the air is pure, and every step you take takes you to a place where everything is perfect, immaculate. And I saw a new heaven and a new earth, for the first heaven and the first earth had passed away, and the sea was no more. As you enter this new kingdom, your loved one is in the holy city, the New Jerusalem. In the book of Revelation, the streets are paved with pure gold, clear as crystal. There is no night here, since the presence of God illuminates every corner. The walls are adorned with all kinds of precious stones, and the doors made of giant pearls are always open, inviting all the redeemed. As you walk these glorious streets, your loved one realizes that they are not. He is alone. Angels surround him, beings of incomparable beauty and purity who accompany him with soft and melodious songs. And I heard the voice of many angels around the throne, and of the living creatures, and of the elders, and their number was millions of millions. These angels guide you to the throne of God, where everything culminates in a vision of divine majesty and power. Finally, he reaches the throne, where he sees God himself, surrounded by a light so intense that he cannot be seen directly, but whose presence is felt in every fiber of his being. And I saw him sitting on the throne, and the appearance of his face was like a stone of jasper and carnelian, and there was a rainbow around the throne, which looked like an emerald. Before the throne, there is a crystalline, serene and transparent sea, which reflects the purity of divinity. Number 9. Meet with God. At that moment, when the soul becomes aware of its new life and feels full and radiant, your loved one has reached the end of his or her earthly life. With the last heartbeat, everything known fades into a whisper, and you find yourself in a completely different place, a space where time dissolves and peace envelopes you. There is no more pain, no more fear, only a deep calm that fills every corner of your being. At that moment he notices a presence that has always accompanied him, although perhaps he had never perceived it so clearly. It is an overwhelming feeling, an indescribable force that envelopes you and fills you with a love so pure and perfect that there are no words to describe it. For now we see as through a glass, darkly, but then we will see face to face. For the first time, your loved one clearly sees what he or she only felt before, the presence of God. This encounter transcends any earthly experience. A bright light appears before your eyes, more intense than any sun, but this light does not blind, she reveals. Deep down, your loved one does not see God as a distant and inaccessible figure, but as the very source of everything good, of everything true. From this point of view, he recognizes himself not only as a finite being, but as part of God's eternal plan. It is a moment of pure revelation, where all doubts and fears are dispelled in the presence of God. Your loved one feels a peace so profound that no earthly experience could match it. In your presence there is fullness of joy, at your right hand there are pleasures forever. On this sacred encounter, there is no judgment or condemnation, just unconditional love that wraps you like a warm blanket. But in the midst of this peace, there is also a feeling of wonder, because seeing God is not just seeing a light or feeling a presence. It is fully understanding, for the first time, who God is and what it means to be part of His creation. Faced with this reality, your loved one understands that God is not only the Creator, but the beginning and the end of everything that exists. In this encounter, he realizes that every moment of his life was known by God, that every step he took led him to this moment of truth. Even before there is a word in my mouth, behold, O Lord, you know everything. This deep understanding fills you with gratitude and wonder, making the entire weight of life, with its joys and pains, disappear in the light of this revelation. Finally, in this encounter there is a fusion of souls, a moment in which the loved one no longer feels separated from God, but completely united with Him. It is a return home, a reunion with the source of all love and all life. Because, in Him we live, move and have our being. In that moment, your loved one not only sees God, but knows Him in a way that transcends all earthly knowledge. This encounter with God is the climax of everything your loved one has experienced. It is the end of your earthly journey and the beginning of your eternity in the presence of the divine. With this revelation, with this understanding, your loved one surrenders completely, knowing that they are in the arms of a love that never ends, in the presence of a God who has known and loved them since before the beginning of time. The Lord is my shepherd, I will lack nothing. And so, with indescribable peace, your loved one is lost in the eternal light of God, where they have finally found their true home. If you were surprised by what people see when they die, you cannot miss the following video, which will appear on the screen, about what the Bible says about cremation after death. This is a sensitive topic that many people are curious to better understand, and in the following video we will delve into the scriptures to find answers and reflections that can provide comfort and clarity. So don't forget to click on the video that appears on the screen and continue your path of knowledge and faith with us. See you there. Today we will explore the 9 things that people see at the moment of their death. When a loved one dies, family members are filled with questions. How will they feel? Will you have peace? Will you be okay? There are memories that hurt and, at the same time, we keep the void in our hearts as a reflection of the love shared. Love never dies, it simply changes form. If you have lost a loved one, perhaps, when you close your eyes, you can still feel their presence, and certainly, when you think of your loved one, your heart is filled with pain. If you have ever felt like this video is for you. Today I am going to share the 9 things that people physically see at the moment of death. The information in this video comes directly from the Bible, but also from reports of people who have had a near-death experience, also known by the acronym NDE. These are people who sometimes reach a state of clinical death, but then come back to life and are able to explain what they saw when they died. Number 1. The person sees loved ones who have gone before. When she dies, she sees them clearly, waiting to guide her to the light, which leads her with peace and joy. Let's imagine your loved one on their deathbed, their eyes closed, but then they open to a new world. There, in the twilight between life and death, familiar faces appear. Those who have preceded us are neither a dream nor a hallucination. They are there, waiting, as if they know their time has come. And the place where they are expected is also a place protected by God, because God is not the God of the dead, but of the living, since, for Him, everyone lives. According to Ecclesiastes, the spirit returns to its origin, where loved ones are, then the dust returns to the earth as it was, and the spirit returns to God who gave it. A person, when he dies, sees clearly, without a doubt, that those loved ones who have died before are there to guide him. There is no fear, there is no loneliness, there is only an indescribable peace and warm light surrounding the scene. Psalm 36 also reinforces this idea, for in you is the source of life, in your light we will see light. Some report that at the moment the deceased sees the light, those accompanying the dying person who are still alive can smell something, a sweet floral aroma that fills the room. It is a sign, a whisper from the beyond, a manifestation of those spirits that have come to take your loved one to a place of peace. I want to take a moment to encourage you to write in the comments, as it can be a great help for others to share their knowledge about their deceased loved ones. Explain how much you miss that person. Many people watching this video will be going through difficult times due to the loss of a loved one, and it can be very comforting to read about their experience and know that they are not alone. By doing this, you can help other people who watch this video and want to feel understood and know that there are other people who are going through the same situation. For example, you can explain the pain you felt or feel when losing someone close to you, or what you did to overcome the loss, or explain what advice from other people helped you at that time. Your comment could help many of us. Now, moving on, we were talking about how sometimes, when a loved one passes away, the people around them can smell a faint aroma of flowers. This is a moment full of tension and drama, a clash between the earthly and the divine that forces us to reflect on the fragility of our existence and what really matters at the end of the road. Because, in these last moments, wealth, achievements, and everyday worries disappear. The only thing that remains is love, the invisible bond that unites those who have gone before us. And so, at the moment of death, a truth that we must all face, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for you are with me, your rod and your staff will comfort me. There is nothing more powerful than a love that transcends death, a love that knows no limits or boundaries, and in the end we will all meet in that light, guided by those who have gone before us. Because death is not the end, but the beginning of a new journey. Number 2, feeling of detachment from material belongings. Secondly, another sensation that patients about to die feel is that all the things they have in life, all the material goods, are no longer important. And that is positive. Because this way they don't get attached to anything and can transcend directly, without any problem. Imagine your loved one's last breath, the moment when everything you know dissolves into nothingness. At that precise moment when life slips away like sand through your fingers, something incredible happens. In the material world, everything that was important before loses its value. That house you loved so much, the car you took care of so carefully, the jewelry, the titles, the achievements, everything disappears in a breath. None of that matters anymore. It is as if, at the moment of death, a truth is revealed, a truth that we have ignored throughout our lives. When someone is about to die, brutal honesty takes over their mind. It is at that moment that they understand that the possessions, wealth, and goods that they have accumulated with so much effort are only shadows, illusions that have no weight on the threshold between life and death. Because we brought nothing into this world and, without a doubt, we can take nothing out of it. This verse resonates strongly at that moment when the dying person detaches himself from all material things. It is a liberation, a definitive break with the earthly world that allows us to advance without change towards the unknown. It's a moment of pure, raw truth. Everything they fought for, everything that ever caused concern, simply disappears. What matters is not in the tangible things. It is not the big house, nor the money in the bank, nor the objects that once defined identity. What good is it for a man to gain the whole world if he loses his soul? This is the question that suddenly takes on overwhelming importance. In the end, all that remains is the naked soul, free from the bonds of the world. And this is where the reflection becomes almost universally profound. In the end, everything that exists is something beyond the material, something that transcends the physical world. It is a feeling that we all share, although sometimes we forget it in the rush of everyday life. Death reminds us of this truth in a way we cannot ignore. At that moment we understood that true wealth is not in what we possess, but in who we are, in what we carry in our hearts and souls. This detachment, this abandonment of material things, is a curse, but also a blessing. He allows us to cross to the other side without burdens, without weights that sink us into darkness. It prepares us for an encounter with the eternal, with the divine. Do not store up treasures on earth, where moth and rust destroy, and where thieves break in and steal, but lay up treasures in heaven. In death, this teaching becomes reality. That's when the light shines brightest. When the soul is free from bondage, it rises towards infinity. This is the last one. Liberation Act. At the end of the road only what really matters remains. Matter dissolves and the soul prepares for the great journey. It is a reminder to all of us that, in life, the essential thing is not in what we have, but in who we are, in the love we give and the peace we carry with us. Because, in the end, this is the only wealth we can carry. Let's move on to the third thing people see when they die. Number 3, they see their own body from above. Third, when they die physically, people often view their body from above, observing all the people present. They see those around them cry, suffer, and they witness everything that happens around them. At that moment they perceive everything, hear everything, and feel everything. They will even be able to say goodbye to their loved ones. Imagine, for a moment, that life, with all its pain and beauty, comes to an end. Your loved one takes their last breath and what happens next is something beyond imagination. Suddenly, your loved one is no longer in your body, but they are not completely gone either. He finds himself floating, suspended in a space between life and the eternal. From above he sees his motionless body, surrounded by faces full of pain, tears, and despair. But your loved one is in another place, a place from which they observe what is happening as a spectator of their own death. This moment is one of the most shocking that a person can experience after death, because the body without spirit is dead. Now, without that body that was his home for years, his loved one is pure spirit and, from this privileged point of view, he perceives everything with a clarity that he had never felt before. Your loved one sees their loved ones, sees their pain, hears their sobs, and feels their suffering as if it were their own. It is a devastating but profound moment. Crying with those who cry is a testimony of the love that surrounds you, a love so great that tears fall like rain. You realize how much you meant to them and how your departure left a void impossible to fill. But there is more. From this viewing spot, your loved one will be able to say goodbye and a final goodbye. There are no words, but the message is transmitted in a language beyond the human, a language of the soul. The spirit itself bears witness to our spirit. This testimony is deep, full of love, gratitude, and peace. It is a farewell that, although silent, resonates deep in the hearts of those left behind. The spirit of your loved one communicates with the spirit of the living and bears witness to your final goodbye. And that's where reflection comes in. A truth that we all carry inside, even if we hide it in the depths of our being. Death is not the end. It is a step, a transition, a transformation. In that moment, as your loved one watches from above, understand that life is not measured by the years lived, but by the love given, the bonds created, and the impact it leaves on those who mourn them. And I heard a voice from heaven saying, "Blessed are the dead from now on who die in the Lord." Yes, says the Spirit, they will rest from their works, because their works follow them. What your loved one sees from above is a reflection of the life they lived. It is a moment of personal judgment, not of condemnation, but of pure truth. In that moment he realizes what really matters: love, compassion, memories. And although it is no longer in your body, its presence is still strong. The Spirit says goodbye, but does not disappear, leaving an indelible mark in the hearts of those who loved him. This is a moment full of tension, of overflowing emotions, but also of deep peace, because, in that silent farewell, your loved one understands that, although life on earth has ended, love does not die, love never stops. Exist. And this is the most powerful truth of all, which ultimately transcends death. Number 4, they visit dreams of living people to say goodbye. Sometimes after people die, they remain for a short time on this plane. They do it to visit places they need or want to see, for various reasons. One of them is to say goodbye to other family members who were not present when they left and want to console them by offering them peace. Therefore, there are cases in which people see family members in dreams or feel their presence without knowing that they have already died. Right at the moment they see them, the person who has just died travels as an energy that touches the dreams of the people they love. Your loved one felt the last breath escape their body, and in that moment everything changed. He was no longer a prisoner of pain, nor of the weight of the flesh. Now it was light, pure energy. But he didn't leave immediately. Something kept him in this world, a force stronger than death itself, love. From this new perspective, your loved one saw everything with overwhelming clarity. He knew he had left the body behind, but he wasn't ready to completely leave yet. There were places I needed to visit and goodbyes I hadn't said yet. It was as if he had one last task to complete, a sacred mission before crossing to the other side. First, your loved one went to see his sister. She wasn't in the room when he died, and it tormented her. He found her sleeping, her face tired from crying. He approached her, leaned over her, and although there were no words, his presence said it all. For he will command his angels concerning you, to keep you in all your ways. He was not an angel, but his mission at that time was to offer comfort and peace. And his sister, although she was still asleep, felt a sudden relief, a calm that flooded her being. At that moment he knew everything would be okay. But it wasn't just for his sister. I knew there were others who needed to say goodbye, even if they didn't know it. The cousin they hadn't seen in years, the old friend they never forgot, each of them received a last vestige of their essence. It appeared in dreams or on an unexpected breeze, and although they did not consciously know it, deep in their souls they understood that this visit was goodbye on their final journey. He understood something he had not seen in life, that death was not the end, but a transition. Love never ceases to exist and, like energy, like light, it traveled through the places and people it loved, leaving in each one a spark of its love. He knew that when he finally crossed over to the other side, those sparks would continue to shine in the hearts of those he finally left behind. Your loved one's time has come. He said goodbye, offered comfort, and closed all the chapters. Now he felt the call of the eternal, a deep peace that invited him to rest. And, with one last look, he let himself be carried away, knowing that he had accomplished his mission and that God would wipe every tear from his eyes, and there would be no more death, nor mourning, nor crying, nor pain. Because the first things have passed. Your loved one disappeared into the light, but your presence, your love, and the footprints you left would remain in this world, in the hearts of those you touched forever. Number 5, see your own life as a movie. 5th, by transcending, people begin to see their life as if it were a movie. Good and bad times come and they want to know if they enjoyed life and were happy. You are shown this so that you can relive these extraordinary moments and truly understand what your life was like on this plane. Your loved one has crossed the threshold, that limit that separates life from the eternal, But instead of disappearing into nothingness, they now find themselves in a different space, where time does not have the same shape, where past and present they are intertwined in a single thread of memories. In this state something profound and revealing happens. Your loved one's life begins to unfold before them like a movie, a sequence of images, sounds and emotions. Every moment, from the days of childhood to the last breath, passes before your eyes with moving clarity. There is no place for lies or illusions here. Everything is seen exactly as it was, because there is nothing hidden that will not be revealed, nor hidden that will not come to light. This is the naked truth, the summary of a life revealed in its entirety. Your loved one observes the good times, those days of pure happiness, when laughter filled the rooms and love seemed eternal. But you also see the hard times, the mistakes, the decisions made in the dark, the words you wish you could take back. For we must all appear before the judgment seat of Christ, so that each one may receive what he did while he was in the body, whether good or bad. It is not a judgment in the condemnatory sense, but rather a review, an opportunity to truly understand the life your loved one lived. He wonders if he was happy, if he enjoyed every day, if he loved enough, if he lived with a purpose. It is a deep reflection that touches the most intimate fibers of your being, because, in the end, what matters is not only what was done, but how it was lived. Teach us to number our days, that we may gain hearts of wisdom. Now, in this space between worlds, what you seek is the wisdom of a life well lived. And in the midst of it all, your loved one realizes something essential. Life wasn't perfect, but it was full of moments that defined its essence. Laughter, tears, triumphs, and falls have a purpose, a meaning that may not have been understood in life, but is now revealed with surprising clarity. In this final checkup, your loved one is not alone. The divine presence accompanies you, guiding you on this journey of self-evaluation. I am the Alpha and the Omega, the beginning and the end, the first and the last. From beginning to end, God was there every moment, and now He reveals the entire truth about your loved one's existence. At the end of this process, your loved one understands that happiness was not a destination, but rather the path taken, that true wealth was not in material things, but in the moments shared, in acts of love and the search for inner peace. With this understanding, you feel at peace, ready to continue your path toward the eternal, knowing that your life, with all its imperfections, has been lived fully. And so, with this final revelation, your loved one says goodbye to this life with a sense of accomplishment, because although it wasn't always easy, every moment was worth it. I fought the good fight, I finished the course, I kept the faith. And now, with a joyful heart and a calm spirit, your loved one steps forward into the light that awaits them. Number 6, see a bright light. Those who have had a near-death experience often describe a great light, a feeling of deep peace or the vision of a beautiful place, a paradise from which they do not want to leave, but to which they have to return because the time has not come. Still come. However, for those whose time has come, this light is the place to which they must go, the place to which they will be guided and where they will live, in that beautiful place of which they speak. Your loved one has reached that moment we all face, the moment when earthly life disappears and eternity opens up like a vast horizon. There was no fear, only a deep calm that enveloped his being. Suddenly, he felt a light. It wasn't just any light, it was bright and warm and filled everything. It was as if every fiber of his soul was drawn to her, to a force more powerful than anything he had ever known in life. Approaching that light revealed a place of indescribable beauty, a paradise, a corner of peace where time did not exist, where pain and suffering were just distant memories. In my Father's house there are many mansions. If it weren't like that, I would have told him. I will prepare a place for you. This was the place that was prepared for him, the final destination where he would find eternal rest. Your loved one felt immense peace, something they had never experienced on earth. There was no urgency, there was no rush. The past, with all its struggles and anxieties, was gone, replaced by a serenity that enveloped him completely. It was as if every wound, every pain, dissolved into light, leaving only the pure essence of his being. For many who have had near-death experiences, this light and this place are just a glimpse, a brief encounter before returning to life. But for his beloved there was no return. That was the final moment of his earthly journey and the beginning of an eternal existence in that paradise that is talked about so much in the Christian tradition. The experience of seeing a light at the moment of death is interpreted as an encounter with the divine presence, the glory of God, or entry into his kingdom. This light is a symbol of God's guidance and love. Although the Bible does not explicitly describe the experience of light at death, it offers several verses that help understand this idea within the Christian faith. In the Bible, God is described as light. This light is a symbol of his holiness, purity, and glory. In John 1, we are told that God is light and that there is no darkness in him. This light represents the truth and eternal life that God offers to all who believe. When someone is on their deathbed and sees a light, Christians interpret this as a coming closer to the Creator, who is described as a pure and brilliant being. Jesus presents himself as the light of the world in John chapter 8, saying, "I am the light of the world. He who follows me will not walk in darkness, but will have the light of life." This verse emphasizes that those who followed Christ during their life will not walk in darkness when they die, but will be guided by light to eternal life. The vision of light at the moment of death can be seen as the fulfillment of the promise of being guided into the kingdom of God. In the book of Revelation, when describing the New Jerusalem, it is said that it is the city that does not need the sun or the moon to shine, because the glory of God illuminates it, and the Lamb is its light. This apocalyptic image reinforces the idea that the light that the dying see is an anticipation of the glory of God, a welcome to the divine presence in heaven. As your loved one stepped into the light, everything became clear. He understood that life on earth was only a preparation, a stage before reaching that final destination. For whoever wants to save his life will lose it, but whoever loses his life for me and for the gospel will save it. Here, in this place of peace, he understood that the true purpose of life was to prepare for this moment, to reach this place where the soul finds its eternal home. And so, with one last look at the world he left behind, his beloved surrendered completely to the light. There was no sadness, no painful goodbyes, just a deep sense of fulfillment for having fulfilled your purpose. In that moment, he knew he was exactly where he was supposed to be, in the place where he would live forever in peace and harmony. Number 7, the purpose of life. 7th, our loved ones discover important revelations about their existence and purpose. They learn that everything they experienced was for their benefit and spiritual evolution, that nothing happens by chance and that everything was a choice. Then they realize that their path has been fruitful, that their spiritual evolution has been considerable. Your loved one has crossed the threshold of death and is now in a space where time and space dissolve into pure consciousness. There is no more pain or confusion, only an